At the turn of the 20th century, while Europe celebrated the so-called civilizing mission of colonial powers, a hidden genocide unfolded deep in the heart of Africa. It was a place of unthinkable cruelty, where the rubber trade was paved with blood, severed limbs, and silence. This was the Congo Free State, ironically named, ruled not by a government, but by a single man, King Leopold II of Belgium. What happened in the Congo under Leopold's rule is one of the greatest crimes against humanity, yet it remains one of the least taught and most forgotten atrocities in modern history. The King's Private Colony. In 1885, during the infamous Berlin Conference where European powers carved up Africa, Leopold II secured the Congo Basin for himself, not for Belgium, but for his personal property. He cleverly disguised his intentions under a fake humanitarian and scientific organization called the International African Association, claiming he wanted to stop the Arab slave trade and bring Christianity and civilization to the region. But in truth, Leopold saw only profit. The Congo Free State, an area 76 times the size of Belgium, became his personal slave empire. He never set foot in the country. Instead, he established a brutal regime run by white officers and local enforcers. The main export, rubber, a product in skyrocketing demand due to industrialization, tires, hoses, belts. But there was no industrial harvesting. Instead, Congolese men were forced to venture deep into the jungle, often barefoot and naked, to gather rubber from vines. They were not paid. They were tortured if quotas weren't met. If they resisted, they died. A reign of terror. The force publique, Leopold's brutal private army, enforced the king's rubber quotas with unimaginable cruelty. Villages that failed to deliver the required amount of rubber were burned. Children were kidnapped and held hostage. Families were slaughtered to make examples. One of the most horrifying practices, cutting off hands. Soldiers were ordered to account for every bullet fired to prevent waste. The proof? Severed hands. If a bullet was fired, a hand had to be shown, but hands were also taken as punishment, or as terror. A soldier could massacre a village and then collect hands from the corpses, or worse, from the living. British diplomat Roger Casement, one of the few who exposed the atrocities, described the Congo as a land of mourning. Death toll, a silent genocide. The exact number of deaths is unknown. No records were kept of the African dead. But historians estimate that 10 million Congolese people, half the population, died from murder, starvation, exhaustion, or disease during Leopold's 23-year rule. 10 million souls. To put that in perspective, it rivals the Holocaust in scale, yet it remains largely unacknowledged in school books and public discourse. Exposure and denial. How did the world finally find out? Thanks to the efforts of missionaries, travelers, and whistleblowers like George Washington Williams, an African-American journalist and preacher, who in 1890 published a damning open letter calling Leopold's regime a crime against humanity. Then came Edmund Dean Morrell, a British shipping clerk, who noticed something strange. Ships leaving Belgium for the Congo carried guns and chains, while returning ships carried only rubber and ivory. No trade, only extraction. Morrell launched the first major human rights campaign of the 20th century. Alongside Casement and others, they formed the Congo Reform Association. The press picked up the cause. Writers like Mark Twain and Arthur Conan Doyle lent their voices. Eventually, international pressure forced Leopold to cede the Congo to the Belgian government in 1908. But even then, justice never came. Leopold destroyed most of his records before the handover. He died in 1909, hated by many, but never prosecuted. Aftermath and amnesia. The Belgian Congo, though less brutal than Leopold's regime, continued to exploit the Congolese people until independence in 1960. Belgium and the world moved on. Monuments to Leopold still stand in Brussels. Many Belgians are unaware of the scale of the atrocities. In Congo, trauma lives on in oral memory. Generations have passed down the stories of the Red Rubber Terror, of the men who returned from the jungle with bleeding stumps, and the women who waited for sons that never came back. The Holocaust of the Congo isn't just a tragedy, it's a moral failure of global memory. 10 million black lives were lost, and their suffering ignored by history. There were no trials, no reparations, no moment of silence. In a world still grappling with racism, colonial legacies, and historical justice, remembering Congo is not optional, it's essential, because silence is how genocide begins, and forgetting is how it happens again.